Ishafikie
Yeah.
about to start a very powerful message that we're going to hear. Help us to keep this message into our hearts and for it to have an impact in our lives. I pray all this in Jesus' mighty name. Amen. Bazalwani. We're having a presentation now, and Lutho Lutho Kava. Lirete.
Thank the leadership of DASA for the privilege that they've given me to come and share a few thoughts around entrepreneurship with the church at large. It's a privilege and an honor to be here. Just want to say, we've been sort of being nostalgic about the good old days of DASA in my life. We normally say, hey, was DASA Asafan? But I'm encouraged by the words of William McLaughlin, an American historian, who argues that culture should be dynamic and it should change. He was speaking about the religious awakening in America. And he has these words to say. He says the religious awakening allows for the preservation of the core values of societal culture, while at the same time enabling the nation to adjust to new circumstances and to the emergence of problems unanticipated by earlier generations. He says the old cultural identity can be allowed to die and a new one to be born, but without the loss of the core values of the societal culture. So, if you want to forge your own identity as DASA of 2023, personally, I believe that is okay. Let's do so. Let's forge our own identity. Let's be excited. Let us experience DASA in our own unique way. But let us just make sure that the core values that has brought us thus far, we continue to preserve them so that we can leave them for the next generation. So gatherings like this are a breath of fresh air, because it means the earlier generation have left us something to carry forward. And it is our responsibility and our privilege to preserve it so that we can pass it on to the next generation. Amen. Now, what I've been tasked to present to you is rather a technical subject, but I am not a technical expert when it comes to entrepreneurship. I'm not an entrepreneur, so I want to lay it out. If you were expecting me to share my experiences as an entrepreneur, I'm not going to do that. Mine is an academic exercise, one that I want us to use the strategic foresight lens to look at aspects of entrepreneurship. Now, when something that can go wrong does go wrong, they say it's, who's that guy? Rhyme or Satan, that guy who did that theory. Right? Yeah, but that guy. Excellent, I tested this thing, it was working fine. But anyway, let's not be Proverbs chapter 16, verse 16 and 22 says, how much better to get wisdom than gold, and to get understanding is to be chosen rather than sin. Understanding is the wellspring of life to him who has it. Now, looking at strategic foresight, there's an institute in South Africa called the Indlulamity Institute. They were tasked to create scenarios for South Africa. So they've done 2 studies thus far, scenarios 2030 and scenarios 2035. For scenarios 2030, they came up with 3 scenarios for South Africa. They wanted catchy phrases to describe what could happen by the year 2030 in South Africa. So strategic foresight looks at possible futures, probable futures, and plausible futures. And out of those futures, select a future that we think is preferable. And then we move back to craft the steps that we need to take in order to attain that particular future that we want. In a little over 7 days, we'll be going to 2024, which will leave us with just six more years to live one of these futures. Either a future that will have social cohesion in South Africa, or a future where everyone to his own. That is the worst and the best case scenario. There's something in between. Now, in order for us to realize either of those two, there are certain steps and certain actions that we need to do or to take as individuals, as society, and as corporates or corporations within South Africa. Now, there's a German education philosopher by the name of Hermann Dunebiert. He says, history and development of civilization is related to the influence and manifestation of society's religious ground motive. Meaning that those sentiments are also echoed by McLaughlin, who says that the change we want to see in the world must be the change that happens in the church. So if we want economic prosperity in the world, that is a change that we need to realize within the church. Because the church has been made to be the agency for societal change. So we cannot change the world and influence the world with something that we have not experienced ourselves. Now, having said that, then it means there's a certain role that the church needs to play. So the church needs to be the enabler for development. It should be a support system for parents, the youth, and society at large. It should be a place for collaboration, and it should hold the blueprint for development. We've got so many development theories that are out there, and development documents. The United Nations has sustainable goals for development. I think our South African government has the NDP. I think it's a document that is supposed to guide us until 2030. But if the church that is supposed to influence change in society does not have a blueprint for development, then we are setting ourselves for failure. It means we'll never attain anything if we do not have that. Now, let's move into the subject itself. Now, there are certain assumptions made by us to lay before the church. This presentation was developed hand in hand with an educational program. So educational development being one pillar, now entrepreneurship being another pillar that is supposed to be a solution to the economic woes of the country. So it is not supposed to be seen competing with professionals and education as such, but it is seen as something that will augment certain skills that people have acquired. So it supposes that each and every one seated in this room has a particular skill that we have attained over time. or a set of skills that we are planning to attain in any case. So one of the things that we preach in my church is that success is not a linear road. It's full of ups and downs. So while we implore people to have a plan and to develop themselves, we understand that there are pitfalls and there are peaks in the road to success. We understand that. Hence, I'm emphasizing to say that if you don't have the skill, but it should be in your roadmap to attain a particular skill. Now, if you look or if you listen to economists, political commentators and everyone, they all agree that entrepreneurship is going to solve our economic growth problem in the country. Economic students and economists alike all agree that our economy has been stagnant. In fact, others dated as far back as 2008 to say real economic growth we've last seen it in 2008. Over the past 15 years, we haven't seen real economic growth. We just don't want to say we're in a crisis. We're saying we're growing at 1%, we're growing at sometimes we even say we've got negative growth. But number one, it's supposed to solve the economic crisis. Number two, it's supposed to solve unemployment problem in the country. There are other things that we need to solve, but those are the two primary goals that we want to achieve through entrepreneurship. We suppose that if you are an entrepreneur or if you start a venture today, and then in a year's time you employ 5 people, so 6 people are subtracted from the unemployment statistics in the country. So if you and me and him, it's a multiplier effect, and you quickly solve the unemployment problem. Now, when looking at the current landscape in South Africa, our presentation will take us through the demographic trends, the current landscape, and then the social aspect of entrepreneurship. In the past few weeks, what I've found is that there are other researchers, like if I can mention, Max Weber, who did a research as early as in 1958. He was saying that most of the time when we talk about entrepreneurship, we talk about the psychological aspect, meaning that we look at the entrepreneur himself. What are the psychological traits or character traits that an entrepreneur must possess in order for him or her to be successful? Whether they must be diligent, they must have a knowledge of the numbers, some sort of business acumen, they must be hard workers, all those kind of psychological traits. We deal with that. Then number two, we look at the economic landscape to say, is there access to funding? Is there access to skills development? Is there access to this? Is there the regulatory framework supportive of entrepreneurship? We normally dwell on that. But there's another aspect that from around 1958 until currently, it's been a subject of new research to say, what are the social and cultural aspects that foster entrepreneurship? And they found that it's actually one of the greatest or the most important part of entrepreneurship. The Global Entrepreneurship Monitor also echoes this sentiment to say that a person, in order for him to succeed or fail as an entrepreneur, it's because of the cultural landscape that he finds himself under. So if you grew up in an environment where you haven't seen entrepreneurs thrive, you are not likely to become one. So when we touch on that, we will also take an example from the Nigerian case. I think we've seen, we're all exposed to Nigerians all around us. There was a time where Nigerians were found in Igbo, but now I think every other street there's a Nigerian guy that you know. Now, let's start with the demographic trend and look at the numbers. I'm a numbers person, so numbers excite me. Now, when taking strategic foresight, when we deal with a subject, they tell us that we need to have a global view of that particular subject. What is the global view? What are the global trends? Next is the Oriental view. The Oriental view Oriental trends, because everything that we find in the world is influenced by what happens in the East. Entrepreneurship being one of the things that are influenced by the East. If you want to start a business today, chances are the Chinese have started that business 20 years ago. They have perfected it. They are now exporting that skill or product to most countries. So in your decision matrix, you need to for instance, if I can take, I'm taking Lungi because, not that okay, maybe but it's fine. If Lungi wants to be a renowned fashion designer, he wants to supply Adventist men fashions, he needs to make a decision. Am I manufacturing it here? Am I importing it from China? Because the economies of scale need him to make that decision. So what is happening in China will affect his decisions and his business directly. So the Oriental view is important. And then we move on to the sub-Saharan context or sub-Saharan view. We live in a global world. We have seen that. But what we've seen more recently is that whatever is happening in Africa influences all of us. When we talk about Africa, okay, others talk about Africa, others talk about sub-Saharan Africa, excluding the Arabic worlds, because there's a view that I'm calling that it's not Africa anyway, or they are not Africans. But it's a debate for another day. But when we talk about sub-Saharan Africa, all countries that have black people, not Arabic people, we're not talking about Morocco, we're not talking about Tunisia, we're not talking about Egypt, we're talking about sub-Saharan Africa. Brothers like you and me. So we're talking about great economies like Nigeria, emerging Ethiopians, as another in Kenya, Tanzania, South Africa, and others. So we need to look at what is happening in sub-Saharan Africa. What are the migration dynamics? How is it going to affect us? And then we look at the South African context after that. So let me take maybe one or two slides to look at the sub-Saharan context in particular. Now, the United Nations, the World Economic Forum, and others are all in agreement that if Jesus Christ does not come by the year 2100, Africa will have the biggest population. There's a period between 2030 and 2050. It seems like a huge period, but others are pegging it down to 2035. They say between 2030 and 2050, most likely being 2035, Africa will reap its demographic dividend. Meaning that Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, will have enough young people to supply the labor market of the whole world. Now there are events, they call them the Black Swan events that are probable but not likely to happen. One of those events was the COVID-19 pandemic. Those are events that accelerate certain trends that we're seeing. During the peak of COVID, we've seen a lot of deaths in Europe. Old people were dying in numbers, Italy, Greece. And those countries need skilled young people. As of today, it's not 2030, it's not 2035. It's in 2023, 2024. They need skilled young people who are going to go and stay there and work there. So we're already seeing that Africa will indeed reap its demographic dividend. Because from the 70s, I think from 1976 or so, 73, 76, up until now, the average birth rate per woman in Africa is about 7 at some point in time, but it has dropped to about 4%. And you know that in China there was a one-child, one-family policy, for instance, and it has created problems for them. As early as around 2006, 2007, they were promoting 2 children per family. But people are so used to having only one child that they have not taken up that offer by their government. And there are certain instances where they were increasing it to 3. but still they are not seeing that. So China is an aging population, Europe is an aging population, America is also an aging population. It still has enough young people, but it is an aging population. So the ratio of the working people to young people is low. But Africa, we can say we are strategically placed when it comes to that. Now the question is, will Africa reap its demographic dividend, or will we have what we call a demographic burden or demographic tax? That is the question we need to ask ourselves. Now, in light of that question, here's another statistics. 47% of South Africans rely on social grants. 47% of South Africans rely on social grants. 18 million were permanent recipients, but 10 million are relying on the SRG or SD, the 350. It's called the 350, I forgot the term. Social grant of relief, SDRG or SRDG, something like that. 10 million recipients of that. And the government, by the way, is considering making it permanent. Who can tell us about the unemployment rate, the current unemployment rate in South Africa? What's the number? It's a lot. Unemployment rate in South Africa, the standard definition, not the expanded definition, just the standard definition. Yeah, 32 is almost 33%. So it's hovering between, and one of the scenarios, the best possible scenario for South Africa is when unemployment rate is below 25%. That is our ideal position that we want to find ourselves in. But we're sitting about 8% above what we want us to. You can do the numbers. 8% of 60 million. It's about 5.2 million. 5.2 million people that need to get jobs or be economically active by the year 2030. And then this is, I hope you can see, this is just the breakdown. Gauteng has, while there are variations in numbers between provinces, but we know that Gauteng, the bulk of Gauteng, symbolizes the median movement in the numbers of the whole country. So whatever shifts we have in Gauteng, we will see the same shifts in the national average. Now, because the 2023 has not ended, I've used the last quarter of 2022 of the quarterly labor force survey, and those were the numbers. So between in the quarters of 2022, there wasn't much movement around the numbers. We're seeing unemployment around 32, it goes to 33, it goes back to 32.5, 32.3. So those are just the shifts that we are seeing. But that is just the bulk of the people where they are sitting. And then unemployment is even higher among ages 15 to 35. You know, I once made a statement and once women was quite there as long time. The statement I made was that your parents are obligated to take you to school until grade 9 and so on. So it is by law that your parents must take you to school until you reach grade 9. So if they take you beyond grade 9, every day because it's because of love, not out of obligation that they are pushing you. So it's a privilege that you must always be thankful for. And then if you do a breakdown, 15 to 24, 24 to 35, and then do a breakdown between graduate unemployment and those who did not go to post-secondary education, there's also a shift in numbers. Graduate unemployment is less than people who have not attained any undergraduate qualification. It's It's something that we've seen. But the levels of unemployment amongst graduates is still concerning in South Africa. Still of the biggest concern. I have a friend who has 2 qualifications, one in engineering, one in health sciences. He worked for 2 or 3 years, got retrenched. He has never found employment ever since. It's been over 10 years now. So he resorted to opening his own business. And he's a thriving businessman. Now, 32% of all youths are disengaged, meaning they are not in education, they are not in employment, they are not in training. They are not, they are just disengaged. So there's something that they are doing, we're not sure what is it. Possibly. Now this Stats SA has a specific report that they produce every year. It's called the NEET report that tracks the percentage of young people who are disengaged. Because growth in NEET coincides with growth in substance abuse and crime. So that is the biggest problem that we're facing. Now, looking at the economic context, we've seen that, we've said it before, that the South African economy has not been growing since 2008 at the levels, at least at the levels. Even if we can disagree whether it's growing or not growing, we can agree that it's not growing at the levels that we would want it to grow. Remember, when the economy is growing, it's going to solve the unemployment crisis. It's going to solve the gap in our revenue as a country, because we rely heavily on borrowing. So the South African government borrows to plug the deficit in the budget. So we budget, if we budget for 1 trillion, we know that we are collecting about 700 billion in revenues. So there's always a deficit in the budget. So we borrow to plug the deficit. And then we also borrow so that we can service the interest of the money that we borrowed last year. So it's a snowball effect. Every year we borrow to service our debts and borrow to plug in the deficits, year in, year out. The last time that the South African government had a surplus was in 2008 again. Now, when we are looking at entrepreneurship, we need to now delve deeper into our sectors. The South African economy for a very long time has been relying on what is known as the primary sector, your mining, your agriculture, for a very long time. But economists and political commentators will tell you that every economy that is growing, it is because the tertiary sector is the one that is leading the economy, which is your services sector, your transport, banking, finance, and the likes, IT services, are the ones which are leading. Until we make, okay, South Africa has made the shift, but the ratio between the tertiary sector and the secondary and primary sector is still small. So until we ramp up our secondary and tertiary sectors, our economy will be stagnant, will forever be stagnant. We know that there are always pressures. In fact, about 2 weeks ago, we were talking about possible retrenchments in the mining sector. Because of the fluctuations in the primary sector, we can't rely on that. Yes, they were crying about load shedding, although I think it's a superficial cry. Personally, I feel so. But we'll take their word for it. They are crying about load shedding and other factors, saying that they need to retrench. The price of gold has gone down. The variations in our exchange rate is a problem. But we are mining, okay, we're mining minerals, or we are supposed to be ramping up the mining of minerals for the renewable sector. We are supposed to. We've got enough natural resources for production of lithium ions and production of electric vehicles. We've got enough in fact, we could collaborate with just Zimbabwe and maybe Zambia. We'll be able to have every component that we need to manufacture lithium ion batteries. In fact, South Africa was the leader in lithium ion research in the early 90s. The CSIR here in Pretoria, contact is there. The CSIR was the lead, and the guys who were leading that research in South Africa are the ones who are leading the research in the US. A month ago, there was an article about in Cape Town, the IPPs in Cape Town want licenses to do micro production of nuclear energy. And guess what? What will enable them to do nuclear energy at small scale is our own technology. The pebble bed modular reactors, which were being researched at Penningham, are the same technology that the Americans have repackaged and wants to offer us. Now, going deeper into entrepreneurship itself, there are many reasons that people want to start a business. One, it's because you want to continue family legacy. There was too many trading. Others are making things, but further cluster. Too many headache, too many trading, and then Francis Tudor wants to continue that family legacy. That is one of the reasons. The second one is that a person has found a problem that they want to solve. The third one, because there's no income. There's no income. So those are the three biggest reasons. There's a fourth one. But in South Africa, the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor, there's that entrepreneurs in South Africa are more driven by loss of income to starting businesses. The balance to solving problems is lower. And we've seen that in countries where the GDP is thriving, countries like Singapore, Korea, China, India, the biggest driver to opening businesses is solving a problem. It's not possible. It's not possible. We've got a problem currently. So someone could solve that problem for us in these 10 days and make a lot of money. I don't know what will be the solve for the problem. Three of us can solve the same problem in different ways, and the three of us can be successful. So we've got how many days are left? How many days are left? 8 days. So the challenge is to solve our problem for the remaining 8 days. And it will be beneficial economically to do. Some of us will not money that's just for next year. I'm just saying, I don't know. Was it in 2012? We've been solving our problem for winter. Now, looking at the social context, the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor, when it was, so they track entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial activity every year across all countries in the world. And then they do a universal report and publish it once a year. But they do surveys, the quantitative and quantitative research, and then they do surveys and checks per country. What are the issues in that particular country? What are the challenges? How to solve for that? What is the policy landscape? Where is it lacking? And all those things. And then, on the social context, they found that COVID-19 had had a huge bearing on businesses. There are certain businesses that have never recovered since 2020. And people have stopped being business. A huge percentage of them cite COVID-19 as the reason why they've stopped. And others which are still operational have told that revenues never been the same. So COVID-19 was a problem. And then another one was hindrance to entering the space was fear of failure. One of the biggest hindrances to entering the business. People are afraid of failing. It speaks to the other aspect I've spoken about, but I'm touching it right now. And then another one is that entrepreneurship is not viewed as a profession of choice. The biggest impact is that it's easy to enter the workplace. I mean, on an ideal, you go to VETS or UGA for 3 years, you work hard, you get a certificate, you apply, you get a job. And then you're fine, you've got security to a certain extent. Job security is guaranteed. Whether you apply yourself or don't apply yourself, the 25 or the 30 salary is guaranteed. Whereas in this space, it's a different space altogether. If you don't apply yourself, there's no guarantee of revenue. So entrepreneurship is not an escape. It's not an escape, it's a higher calling, if I can put it that way. Because entrepreneurship hinges on solving social problems. The biggest or primary objective of entrepreneurship is to solve social problems. Whether it's unemployment or something else that we have identified as your niche and you've entered into that space, but you're solving the problem. Now, I've spoken about Max Weber and the research that he did in 1958. And then he came up with 4 variables, cultural variables, that we must look into when we're looking at entrepreneurship from a social context. And one of the variables was that work attitudes and the environment the individual is exposed to influences their values. And then these values and attitudes from family, friends, school, and society, and also religion, they have a bearing on the decisions that you make. Whether decisions at work, decisions in your business, if you're a business person. And then also, if the environment that you find yourself in is supportive of entrepreneurship, you are most likely to become an entrepreneur yourself. Now, in the 4 variables, he talks about the Protestant ethic, he talks about withdrawal of status, he talks about social migration or marginality, and then he talks about role models. The first one, the Protestant ethic, is based on the Calvinistic view of predestination. Apparently, there was that view in America that because we are Christian, we are predestined to be Christians, number 1. Number 2, because we are Christian, we are also predestined to succeed. And they say that thought now influenced their work ethics. So they applied themselves very hard to their work, such that they were successful. So it perpetuated the belief that they were predestined to be successful. So the Protestant work ethic had a huge role in whether one succeeds in entrepreneurship or your professional career of choice. The second one was withdrawal of status. So when they were tracking entrepreneurial activity, they found that if a particular society, their status is withdrawn due to one force or another, they are most likely to go into entrepreneurship. Withdrawal of status can be something forced like apartheid, what we were talking about outside the Pastor Tent in Zimbabwe. Yes, that one. Yeah. So when a particular people find themselves of a lesser status in society, they are most likely to resort to entrepreneurship as a way of economic activity. They have seen that in Nigeria, the war between the Yoruba and the Igbo created one of the best entrepreneurship systems in the world. In fact, it's a case study for business schools. It's called the Igba Bai or Igba Boy. It's a what's the word? Yeah. But what happens is that if you are an Igbo man, you have a business. You are mandated to take a boy from your own village and stay within the town for it's about 7 years on average. So the boy learns your trade. He learns your business. He does your errands. You want cars washed, you want kids from school fetched, whatever you want him to do, he has to do it. But the trick is you must teach him your trade, you must teach him your business. At the end of the 7 years, you must give him one of your businesses. And then he will run the business himself. And then he's going to go and get another boy from the village and stay with him. You'll see, if you are close to 1 or 2 Nigerians in South Africa, you would realize that it's happening here in South Africa. He comes to South Africa, he opens a tire shop or a salon or something. He works. After some time, you see another one coming to work in the salon or the tire shop. After a few years, it's that one running that. The other one has moved on to open another business somewhere. So they do that. And they do that. Develop them. It speaks to develop them. It speaks to role models. In South Africa, so researchers are saying that there are low levels of entrepreneurship amongst black South Africans. But when they were tracing, so now, when they are tracing down the history, they are not in agreement anymore. Others are saying there's low levels because of the traditional view of entrepreneurship, formal businesses. It's less black people. But when you look into the informal economy, you're seeing a lot of activity amongst black people. And they are saying that these activities were evident even during apartheid days. And it speaks to the withdrawal of status of the black people in South Africa. Remember, black people were not allowed to own land, they were not allowed to have certain economic activities, not allowed to be doctors, not allowed to do this, not allowed to do that. Even when these changes started happening, you could only go to certain medical schools to do medicine or certain law schools to be a lawyer, and you can only operate in certain areas. So black people have always found a way to be economically active despite the laws. In fact, it's not Weber, but some UJ and NMU researchers were saying that there were about 500 laws in South Africa that were preventing black people from owning businesses in one way or another. 500 laws. So that in its own motivated people to start their own small businesses. And then role models, as I've said before. So everyone is in agreement that if you have not grown up seeing black entrepreneurs running their businesses and succeeding, you will most likely not go into business. Most likely not go into business. Now, as we move into the sectoral focus, maybe let's break for 10 minutes there. Let's pause there for 10 minutes. Because that has a huge bearing on the presentation, the social and cultural context of entrepreneurship. I want to give now 10 minutes, 5 minutes each to our elders to maybe share a word or two about their experiences opening businesses, running businesses. Coming our elder God. Ngesixhosa kuthiwa izindlu butsha, sasaqala ngapha. Because I felt that it's important that we get thoughts and insights from our very own who've walked this path.
Yeah. Sanibonani. Thank you so much. I fall within the stats of those who never saw anyone do it, and therefore was most likely not to start it. More than anything else, in the construction space, that's where I served most of my life. I went for clinical. I started off, actually, let me start it where it should be. Do you know subcontracting? When you cannot have the finances to start it yourself. In construction, you then takes up, you become a subcontractor. There's a main contractor, and then you work under the main contractor for a fee. He makes a profit on your production, and it goes. My involvement was such that I became subcontractor, who then later became the main contractor relied on my production for his profits or continuation. And I continue to do that, doing projects, the Sun City, TUT, University of Pretoria. Those are construction related. And as time went, I went to work in Malela. The TSB plant was starting in Malela. And somehow fate had it that I would end up doing the bulk of the work because the guy I was working under was an Afrikaner guy who liked alcohol. He lived in Newcastle, so every fortnight, whenever he had a chance to go home, he'd only return around Thursday, Thursday. And the site would be left to me to run and service and help other subcontractors who were also employed. His bosses picked up on it, and they came to visit on occasions when he was not present. And they then started asking, how are you able to keep up with the work that you are doing in the absence of your supervisor? And they pointed towards me, when he's not there, he postponed. Yeah, he postponed, and then they pointed to me. I did not know that was another way, maybe God's way of getting me involved in something that will grow my skills and also capacity. Because from that testimony and report that I managed to keep the business running to the extent that the owners did not see any difference in production, opened a space for me. The next time they visited, they then asked me to work with them on a permanent basis. It was a nice position because I could be able to select the entry level into their business. So I then divided my tools, construction tools, profiles, you know the words, amongst the guys, 4 of them, and they continued their life when I went into corporate. At corporate, I started off as a building manager at Clinical Building, and I went for Clinical Building, and then from Clinical Building I went to Civils and Earthworks. You learn more skills in all of those environments, different and so on and so on. Then from there, in the years 1990s, 92, 93, 94, if you bought the Sunday Times, there were columns written, people on the move. My face appeared there several times. I then, because my strength and forte is marketing, so I became marketing person in the construction sphere. Then general manager, then managing director of the housing division of Clinic. Then I worked there, and then later on moved to marketing again, this time looking at projects, bigger projects, such as the Gautrain bid, such as the Mabuga Dam bid in Swaziland, and all of those areas. Further exposure, but you get tired of it, working for somebody else. Then when I left Greenacre, I partnered with them to do concrete placement, which was an area that I had done previously. So if you drive around the Boapomo from Petersburg and going to the Boapomo, you will see the platinum smelters. Let me say, 50% of the concrete in that works is the concrete that we produced. With my team, at the time employing drivers, operators of the plant, machines that produce concrete, and we were required to do that 24 hours. So we had to have a whole lot of amount of people working shifts in order to keep up with the thing. Then, somewhere when you smell concrete, you don't stop. When that ended, I decided to build for myself. And when I started one of the ventures that I had, which were closest to my guys, I brought in guys to come in and serve in a different capacity. I started a church. And one of the guys who still keeps up as a business person and a successful one for that matter is Temba Shuai. Mentored him into that space. He was doing electricity, and later on he ventured into construction. So those are the things that we did. What I like most now in my years, I don't stop, by the way, I'm over 70. but I have a knack and like to move on further. Construction, sophisticated construction, where I deal with digging stuff in the ground, bury it, and build on the top. It's a bit difficult and tricky to do, but I love doing it. And at the moment I do that, but I sell another capacity that I want to have, and it is interior decoration and landscaping. So that when a person has me, he has all the capacity of all those things that I have. Being Adventist plants us from being aggressive in business. That is the downside of it. Because we can't go the whole hog, in that we are restricted and limited by our faith, not to do certain things that would end up putting us on the front pages of newspapers and so on and so on. Be that as it may.
You've got limited choices. So my older brother worked for a construction company. He's a general assistant who specializes in electricity. David Moses. So out of trying to raise the money, join the construction company, then I started to love electricity. Right? Now I needed to reconfigure my life now. Right? Go study electricity and do the business. But there is a point raised by Ukwachi on the issue of mentoring. And joining Adventist Church in 1992, yeah, you understand. I joined Adventist Church in 1992 and then worked under Wab Chabalal, RT Electrical Construction, then joined ESCOM, then went to ESCOM College, studied and polished myself to become an electrician. What is important about starting a business? You need to find a niche in the market. Don't do do what everybody else is doing, you're not going to have a specialty. That is why my business, I don't do all the pylons, electrical wiring. I know how to do that, right? But I specialize in certain things that nobody has, right? For the market to always have a need for my business. Is that okay? Yes. When I do cabling, I trace fault in cabling. I have a test machine, right? When I do lighting, I specialize in stadium lights, the big ones. Take them down and raise them. I think the issue of business, and it is unfortunate with the young people at Kwati, is that we are moving into the knowledge economy. Nobody is going to get employed unless you specialize in something. What is it that you see in the market? The glaring gap in the market, close that glaring gap, create a need for people to say, oh, people down. Is that okay? He's the only one who can do this. There are a lot of electricians. There's nothing special about being an electrician. Is that okay? Yes. But also, in terms of aggression, maybe when he completed his master's degree in electrical engineering, I wanted him to open a consulting company. And he said, he's not ready. I am. You know that discussion. You were there. And I feel that as Adventists, let's cooperate. Let's build big companies that have a competitive edge for us to conquer the world. I think his statement to say the church must lead in terms of the blueprint that solves the problem of the world. And we need that. We really need that. I think let's move away from the issue graduate with catering. I'm if I attend the cool when I graduate, I went to catering. Right? We are skis. We are on and our control could cook better without that diploma. Is that okay? I think what I'm saying part in my 2 minutes that you have given me, I'm excited about your presentation at STASA, right? Because young people, where they are, they're standing at a very critical threshold, right, of making choices in life. And as he has alluded, life is not linear. It has its own ups and downs, right? Some of us will go looking for law and end up being an electrician. Is that okay? Yes. And also. Right? He wants to be a pastor. We really want to see calling in the church. Thank you.
I have 5 minutes left. There's a lot that we could have covered, but I think it's maybe the right point to pause and maybe allow for some reflection. Or until 5. Okay. Okay, maybe let me push a few slides. There have alluded to certain challenges and emphasized other parts. Skills development, if you can summarize it in about that. Listen to how he has traced his journey and the key skills he has acquired over that he has enabled him to occupy a particular niche in the market. Look how he said it was by default. It felt under the other pillar of starting a business. There was no income. He needed to find something, and then he gravitated towards entrepreneurship. There are so many stories that we could share that could encourage us. But there are certain things. But now, on the other side, there are challenges to entrepreneurship. But as big as they may sound, we have success stories in spite of those challenges. Key to funding is one of the biggest challenges, especially for black business people in South Africa. traditional funding models are difficult and we need to understand that. You come to me, you tell me you have an idea, you want 1 million. All you have a piece of paper. You might not even have that idea for what it's worth. So I need some form of security. And security as black people do not have. That's a problem. The regulatory environment, as I've alluded before, there were 500 laws that were inhibiting black people from entering the space. So our government has been hard at work because most of the time we don't know that these are the 500 laws that are hindering people from entering business. We need to do away with them. But as law 472 is experienced by court, and then the government will deal with that. Then I come, and then we see that law 271 is another hindrance. So it's going to take time for government to address everything. So the regulatory framework is seen as stagnant or slow in fostering entrepreneurship. That's another problem. And then skills development, we've spoken about that. And then there's infrastructure and technology. Businesses that thrive now are on e-commerce platforms. Go to the township. Most businesses there are not in any platform. Either because the business owners do not know about those platforms and what they can do for their businesses, or two, those platforms are not tailored for those type of businesses. And then market access and global competitiveness. You can't start a t-shirt manufacturing business. In fact, you can start it, but you need serious research to compete with the East in textile business. There are so many other spaces. Where I work, my company spent, I think it was in 2021, they spent $1 billion buying lithium-ion batteries. Bulk of them are coming from China. Countries in Europe which are specializing in manufacturing lithium-ion, they have to resort to closing a niche. For instance, one of them was, instead of doing lithium-ion, they're adding manganese. And others are doing sodium-ion batteries. It's deep cycle batteries. They last longer. The discharge rate and the recharge rates are much better. Others are fusing lithium-ion with supercapacitors for lower charge times and longer lifespan of batteries. So, in order for you to compete with China, you need to do creative things. Because China has been in this business since the 70s. They have crafted and planned their economy to the T. So you really need a lot of work in order to compete with them. And as a business person, the global context is that one of the things that you need to answer is, will it be cheaper to do it here or must I source it somewhere else? That is a business decision on its own. Now, looking into there are certain trends. Now, if we were to see what is it that we can do, there are certain trends. Digital transformation. They are saying that for a business to thrive, you need a certain level of digital transformation. You cannot rely now on clock cards. If you are a construction company, you have to calculate your man hours. How are you going to track if Ulungi come to work today so that you can pay appropriately in 2 weeks' time? You can't rely on the old clocking cards and all those things. You need some form of digital transformation to track your progress in labor. You need to do precise Gantt charts to manage your project appropriately. So there's some digital transformation that must happen. It's an opportunity, again, for other businesses and other people who want to go into that space. Most of us who spend our time as a musician, now and again, we like to have a good contact. Now we have to rely on the word of mouth to say, take from your man. That's an opportunity that one can go into. Say, you create an app that can geocode your location, say where you are. If you want the best quarter, turn right. If you want the best Omaguinyan, turn left. If you want the best what, take the second exit on your next roundabout. Sustainability and social responsibility. Another key thing. There's, okay, I won't get into that today, but there's at the end, towards the end of my presentation, it's dedicated to social entrepreneurship. It's the biggest trend. Now I have some close friends who are in that space. One, the lady that we got at church, who she was a big person, and she left her employment. She's teaching girls how to code. Thriving business. Teaching young girls, black girls. In fact, that's how it started, but now the business has grown to bigger than that. She was commissioned to write coding textbooks in vernacular languages. She has talked she's presenting TED Talks all around the world. She has been to Silicon Valley, and some companies in the Silicon Valley are endorsing her product. There's another guy that we went to school with, Bogan as well. Brother Sylvester. His younger brother Sylvester. He never went out of school. So I think we're doing our second year. Like he was doing his second year. I was already done. So I think we had a Yovi. He's walking to school. Then he meets some homeless guys. And then he sparks a conversation with him. And then he finds that one of them came to Joburg to start events. Ended up being homeless. So he helped him due to certain circumstances. So he helped him to be reintegrated into the system, went back to school, and then they started what they called a business foundation, helping homeless kids. It's a thriving business today. Because apart from funding that they get as an NGO, they serve as a consultancy for research scholars. They go and they get cases for them. It's a business. Things that we think are non-starters. Businesses that solve a social problem. Artificial intelligence. Okay, that's my passion. There was a video that I prepared, but I don't think it's clear. So they say it's the age of doing nothing. You can allow an AI bot to do whatever. You can program a robot. This was 20 years ago. In fact, I think it was not 702. What's the other station that is based in Cape Town? The sister station. Cape Talk. Cape Talk. They did a 2-hour show using an AI bot as a presenter. They did not miss an advert. They did not miss a call. They did not miss anything. There was no human being in the studio, just a program to do the show. It's a challenge, but it's also an opportunity. What's that company? Boston Robotics. Is it Boston Robotics or Boston something? But the company in the US, it's in Silicon Valley, they have perfected the art of doing robots. That their robots can move. They don't only move on a linear plane. So the actuators that they have designed, that they can mimic your joint movements, natural joint movements. So if the robot, it can go up and down the stairs. If it misses a step, it can balance itself automatically like a human being. No, robotics is a highly specialized field. But they've done that. And when Professor Mapara was still in Eugene, they procured 2 of their robots. They've got robotic dogs. So most people don't actually know what is a dog with Tanda. They like big boys because they see them as the epitome of security as far as dogs is concerned. Now, personally, I don't like them because I think those things are not dogs. But you could procure yourself a robotic dog that can be as aggressive as a pit bull, but it can have the intelligence to back down when it sees that it's a child. It's an opportunity. I'm saying there's a challenge that pit bulls are killing children. You could solve that challenge. What dogs see children? It's collapsing. That's an opportunity. Another big opportunity in South Africa is around agriculture. While our economy is moving away from the primary sector into secondary and tertiary sectors, and agriculture is still seen as the primary sector. But there's, in the value chain, in the agribusiness value chain, there are other services that infuse artificial intelligence in agriculture. Have your irrigation system that can be controlled. Not just you know that you're irrigating your plants at 5 o'clock, only when it's required. So we can have a system that measures humidity, measures your soil levels, the amount of fertilizer in the soil, such that we can optimize your fertilization of your plants. Also, the other value chain in transportation and processing, agri-processing. There was it Sam Alexander or the late secretary of the Cape Conference, the Canada, who passed around it's one of the tours, as I remember. He went to Canada and on the market stores, he sees beautiful apples. And then I think, I've never seen apples this beautiful in my entire life. So he goes to buy. And then the store owner goes to say, you like the apples? He says, yeah, they're the best. You know what? He says, no, because they're sourced from South Africa. This is South African. He's never seen apples. Opportunities. In the health sector, opportunities. I have a cousin who went to school to do pharmacy. In fact, he wanted to be a doctor, but lack of funds and area to entry to medical schools, he ended up doing pharmacy. And then after a few years, he decided to quit pharmacy. He went back to study medicine. And he had a vision that in the rural areas, access to medication is a problem. So he wanted to create, put on his business mind, create something that will cater for medical aid people and people who are subscribed to get chronic medication from public institutions. Exploit the market and benefit from that. Maybe now let's interact. Questions, comments, anything. We don't have to do the questions, comments. Questions, comments, questions, comments. Questions, comments.
My challenge is how do we because nendlela yenkonzo yokukhula, it's linked to this studies, right? Economy and everything. And how I wish for this is true, that we could integrate the thinking of postmodern society, the growth patterns, modernizing indlela yethu yokuvama, and making sure ukuthi ibandla alisaleli, right? Maybe it is high time to have a person who has done a future studies into the administration of the church. I'll tell you why. One of the churches that is not recovering from COVID-19 because COVID-19 opened a gap for them to see their scandals is NCC. It might not come back as forceful as it was before, right? Everything was exposed because of COVID-19. And it has reconfigured the way they're doing business. It has affected many people who are doing business with the church. But bakuthengisa itiye, ikatulo, and I think for future trend and while we're talking entrepreneur, we need to also to look at the church as a business, because it has a business side for it to be sustainable into the future.
Yeah.
So one of that Max Weber says when he's speaking about Protestant ethic is that one of the problems that entrepreneurship is solving, especially in the church, is the problem of materialism. With the belief that we have to work hard so that we can succeed, or we're predestined to succeed. He argues that material gain by the church of that time was not seen, the material gain in itself was not seen to be a problem. But now, gain so that you can be idle was the problem. So meaning that if you have a lot of money and your money makes you to be idle, then that is a problem. So they saw material accumulation as a way of reinvesting back into the system. So it solved problems around development. And then it solved materialism, and then it created enough capital to finance new ventures also. So we have a vested interest as a church to see people succeeding as entrepreneurs.
Good afternoon. Yeah, thank you, Lutho Kava. Yeah, I want to talk about social business. Why we have a challenging amount of Adventist in other businesses that will require us maybe to, in terms of ethics, work ethics, and as well as the church, we are able to transact other businesses. When I finished school, we were together at school back then. Before I joined the social one, like I'm NGOs and NPO, of which I think it can be a good start for us at STASA. We're registered as an NPO. We can use that certificate to develop some certain business way for social ills that we are seeing in the community. We stay there, we see things that I think, and some of us have got skills. Like I worked from school, I joined an NGO in my home, and one is one of the biggest that even in the Northwest government, when it wants to do a research, they come to that center, which we started when we were not working. And now I'm a board, I'm a director of the board of the same NGO. So I'm saying there is an opportunity in the NGOs and the NPOs, and the businessmen about Tao, they can say, no, in social responsibility, let's give you money. Then we have supported the church, we have supported, at the end of the day, we are able to employ each other. Then the church is able to grow as well. I will pose this challenge to us here, that let us not start to finish and not want to go and work for another company. Let's register the NGO. Have a focus that in my NGO, I want to empower like young people. We've got a problem of drugs. What can we do as a church? What can we do as a church to mitigate that? And there's funding. I remember back in the days when we started, we're dealing with HIV, AIDS, and TB. And money in the social responsibility, the companies, they were in the what? In HIV and AIDS. Now it has moved. Now the money has moved. It's in drugs and vulnerable children. Now it has moved. It's on gender-based violence. So we need to trace with it. Where can we operate with no. Now HIV, AIDS, and TB, there's no money. There's no company wants to invest in that. They are now in gender-based violence. They are also in drugs and vulnerable children. So as DASA, let's come up with something. Also, let's come up with something and say, with the NPO that we have, you're a secretary of this organization. So let's come up with something. What can we do? What can we do? Even us as pastors,
as pastors, we are available a lot of, during the day, most of the time we have, why can't we go to those NGOs and maybe run them together with the members, then we are able to employ people in the church that having an income. So I think, as we are here, help us on how to access those social businesses and the social corporate investments in the companies, connect us with, so that they are able to invest as well in the non-governmental organizations. Just as a side note, when you were talking about truck problems, you know that in Gauteng, the youngest truck dealer that was arrested was 8 years old. 8. Yeah, 8, no, just think about that.
I greet you all in Jesus' name, amen. The elder mentioned something about like catering graduates, right? And it sparked an argument between us. But he does have a point. So I don't know how to phrase my question, but I hope you'll get it. Is it time we grew up being told, do what you love, invest in what you love, but is it possible that we need to come to the hard truth and realize that not every interest is profitable and not every interest can turn into a business? So we have to, is it possible that now as young people we need to start looking at what the market is short of and not what you love anymore?
I like that pen. You fancy pen. Sinabantu abamnyama as black people, we don't have luxury of doing what we like. And I think that should be understood by a black child. Only a white person can study stars in the anthropology after 17 years. Right? After 17 years, when he has discovered the different star. Is that okay? We don't have the luxury. Let's divide a life of a young person. 12 years into schooling. You are 18. Right? For argument's sake, your dad is 64. You are 18. Right? 1 year is going on retirement. You are left with 4 years to get an undergrad. Right? And it's not enough qualification to get you anything in South Africa. At least you need a master's. So let's remove love from this thing. This thing is real. This thing must pay bills. This thing must pay bills. Right? As a girl, if she's not pregnant at 22, there's an addition of a liability in her life. Is that okay? And when you want to do what you like.
It's another comedy like we talk. It's different. Okay, maybe before we get to that. So, I think we are getting what Elder Brown is coming from. But now maybe to bring it into your context. By the way, that is how his generation, my generation, will go down. Is it going to pay the bills? Generation is what? Generation like a city, you know, so you know about generation like his generation and mine, but there were certain similarities. It was what was primary is would it bring food to the table? There was an interesting discussion or talk on which the other day, and you were saying that. So it was a discussion around that. There was a sentiment that certain degrees, it was all around education, certain degrees are useless. Then one guy, I think, kills the argument and says, no degree is useless. But the problem is that we want to solve different problems with different degrees. And he made the distinction between professional degrees and academic degrees. And he made the allusion that if you want to go the academic route, you need at least a postgraduate in order for you to be economically active. You can't think you're going to have in fact, for my wife to be registered as a clinical psychologist, she needs a master's degree in psychology. You can't practice psychology with a degree. It's an academic degree. In order to professionally recognize it, we need degrees. So we need to understand first, before the discussion, understand the field you're going to, whether it's business or study, understand what you want to go into. The other thing was that he spoke about identify the niche. Whether it's what you like or what you see as attractive, but you must understand the gap that will be closing. Ogum Kondo said he specialized in concrete structures and complicated structures. So you need to understand the niche, understand the gap. Those are some of them. Singapore, the music artist song is being 10 or you want to succeed. Because maybe that one is understand what is the niche in the market. So you can do catering. Let's bring maybe you can do catering, but you must send the beetroot in the chocolate. Maybe some Italian cuisine or something.
It's not that I have a desire for this, but I want to ask, the cannabis industry is the most growing business in South Africa. It's the most growing industry in South Africa. So as an Adventist or as a Christian, is it wrong for me to sell
No.
it? I have no business in
You know the answer.
after selling it. I can sell grapes and then they decide to do wine and alcohol. So it's not my fault. So is it wrong to sell cannabis, buy a farm and then plant it and sell it to other people? Is it wrong as a Christian?
So maybe if I can give a technical depends out, there are technicalities around cannabis. There's hemp, there's wildlife, there are different types of it. But there are differences in the plant. And the uses are different. Others are used for material, ropes, others they extract the CBD oil, the others have the calming effect, others have the hyper effect.
So, it's another question in it. So, listen, okay, let me not speak to that. Everything is about like the connection in these days. If you're not connected, or if you don't know someone who knows someone, like your idea can just be an idea, even if you have a prototype, something. So, I'm more interested into like the biomedical engineering and so on. I don't know who to, like, you understand, like, I don't know who to talk to, I don't know who's willing to listen, like, who to speak to, give me 5 minutes of your time, type of, like, I can't just be stalking people to get that 5 minutes and hope that they listen to me. So, in that, like, regard, it's, I don't know if I should say it's discouraging in a way to, like, maybe entrepreneurship and whatever, because of that. And also, like you mentioned, we don't have collateralistic people to get funding or something like that. So it's also, I don't know, crippling, because now you're raising good things, good ideas, and highlighting the problems, but at the same time, it's not like a really suggested solution or on how to go about it. Or I don't know if it should be like only meant for those who are interested. Okay, if you want to go further, maybe you should try research the solutions to the problems, or then ask further. Mara, problem of worry, I don't have connection, to get capital to find these things. And,
You are right, number one. It's one of the challenges that we are facing. Number two, it speaks to the regulatory framework. It's the mandate of for instance, the space that, particularly the space that we are facing. Ideation of innovation is the mandate of CSIR. So if you have a particular idea that you've either created or have the idea, The CSIR is an institute that is supposed to incubate your idea from idea to product. They are supposed to do it. So it will be worthwhile to get in touch with them. But the other challenge is that if you already have a prototype of some sort, it will be in your best interest to also approach a patent lawyer. Even if you have not filed yet, but to have the intention to file, so you can protect yourself. Look at the case of this Colin case and other cases where ideas were taken. And I know big corporates are not big in signing entities. They'll tell you, come with an idea, you're not going to go. And because it's you who wants to benefit, you'll be vulnerable and open the source to expectation. So it will be worthwhile to speak to CSIR, check patent lawyers are also expensive. But just the initial fee to sort of file your intention to file. So that we can have some documentary to say this was your idea.
Thanks, I just wish we had more time to engage the presentation. I think there's so much to it that we will not do justice to in this kind of setting. In fact, I would have preferred if we were running it as a workshop on a 3-day basis, and we would break into different groups and come and give and here's fundamentally what my challenge is, and I think Memman it's episode at an entry level introduced what my problem is. I think fundamentally South Africa is not a conducive environment for entrepreneurship because of corruption, because we limited access to funding, and for businesses that are operational, late payment of invoices, which makes liquidity of businesses, cash flow to be impossible. So those are serious challenges that we have in South Africa. And I'll bring you 2 case in points where, take Mark Shuttleworth, right? Take Elon Musk, right? These are brains that brought innovation, right? But their innovation could not be incubated in South Africa. And thus they had to relocate in order for innovation to find incubation, right? Maybe just for a few minutes, look at the story of Elon Musk. The brilliant concept of Tesla electric vehicles, right? Went into the market, was not well received in the market, right? And the challenge, and as an entrepreneur, instead of giving up, he goes back to the market and says, why is my product not acceptable to the market? And then everyone makes the same conclusion, gives him the same conclusion. There is not enough infrastructure for this product to be accessible, right? So I can buy a Tesla, but I can charge it at home in the US. And suppose the range of the battery is 300 kilometers, but I'm driving to Bloemfontein from Pretoria. Between Pretoria and Bloemfontein, there is no place to charge this car. That makes it an impractical thing to have. You know, it's a fruitless and wasteful expenditure. What Elon Musk then did is he took all his money, right, went back and repurposed, stopped the production of Teslas, right, and moved into the production of stations for charging these vehicles, right? Spent billions of rands into creating charging points all over the US. And then he then came back and said, okay, I've solved the problem. Here's my product. And then Tesla started booming, made him arguably the richest man in the world right now, right? But that cannot be incubated in South Africa. When was the last time you heard of innovation in South Africa? Batu. Even if you look at the company, even if you look at the ownership of the actual company, you see that there is more percentage on foreign ownership than the owner who is the face of the brand. Right? You speak of Makosa. It's the same thing. Right? And you mentioned how China is leading in everything. But here's one of the most important things that China has done over the years. They've invested in mass industrialization and have invested in efficiency. So the Chinese don't care about service. They care about production. This is what I mean. If you can buy the cherries. Yeah, you can buy a cherry as a new car. If you are a first car owner, you can buy a cherry and you will enjoy it. But if you come from Mercedes-Benz and you buy a cherry, you will hate the car. And this is why. When you buy a cherry, you will not get the same service from cherry that you will get from Mercedes-Benz. If I drop off my car at Mercedes, an hour later, they will say the car is with this service consultant. After 2 hours, they'll send you a message. This person is now dealing with this car. After 3 hours, and you get those messages throughout the day until they finally say your car is ready, we are sending a driver to come and fetch you. You will not get that service from the chair. Even when you go fetch your car, it's just a normal thing. There's no board, there's nothing. It's just a casual thing. Because the Chinese do not care about service, but they care about productivity, right? And that's why they're leading in even textile. You can't touch the Chinese in textile because their efficiency is out of this world. But what has the Chinese government done for its people? Every notable Chinese company in the world is funded by the Chinese government. Whether you talk Huawei, whether you talk Cherry, now even in the construction space, you talk of the Construction Bank of China, which is operating and funding most projects done by the Chinese in South Africa. Therefore, that's why you will see, we used to have, say 15 years ago, 20 years ago, we used to have 5 main companies in construction. You would have Greenacre, you would have Marie and Roberts, you would have Group 5, but you will not have that now because the competition is on a whole new level. The Chinese are coming in and part of their package is we are bringing our own labor force because the Construction Bank of China is funding that. So they come in, they buy the whole half of Centurion, they develop it. And the businesses that they fund in turn profit the government. Now, here's where I'm going. The challenge of South Africa is the lack of political will to see potential in its people. Right? That's the problem. We don't have a problem of innovation, ingenuity. We don't have a problem of that. We have a government that does not have the political will to look and service its people. You cannot have innovation when people know that even if I have an idea that can be incubated, if you are a girl, you have to sleep with someone for that to happen. If you are a man, they are now also sleeping with men. You have to sleep with other men so that you get the tender. Or you are going to go to a government department and present, and they will tell you that there is no merit in what you presented. You will leave, and you will see next year someone else doing what you presented. So the challenge, I think, when we speak entrepreneurship, we we must not limit it to the pitfalls of an individual entrepreneur. Because, like you said, we live in a global community, and the setting and context of our country does not allow for the fostering of entrepreneurs. That's my personal view.
Thank you. Unfortunately, unfortunately, I only allow something.
I think you've also captured what I wanted to say. We are operating even here under an assumption that we understand what you are trying to say to us. I'm not being honest. You want to believe that this is an imperial class of space that must produce the desired end. But probably 50% of us here don't know anything about business, no aspiration for business, probably will never do business. Because there are people that, even though sometimes the passion is there, but the ability to do that is not there. And I think I'll just give two scenarios, which I think are the tragedy of the current time that we live in. In Northwest, in particular, the side that we are in, government is the major employer. For a child's development, the Department of Education says when you are 6 years, you must be at school. When you are 17, you must be exiting school. They might give you grace to 18, 19, and then you can no longer be accepted. Tina is coming to grade 10, like 5. You will still come back to school, but you can't. From 18 to 25, government is trying to give you education. Once they begin to understand what you are struggling with school, then, but okay, fine, let's give you a skill. Once you are 35 and you can't have a skill, you can't have education, then but you must only give you 50. There is nothing the current economy has for you beyond that stage. They can't employ you. You are a risk factor even in starting a business. They may not borrow you anything because you have nothing. So you are the outcast of the economy and its markets. There's no way we can trace you. And this is my word, Ukoti. With this, what we are talking about, almost 70% of the people we are talking about fall within that range. The level of unemployment here, not amongst the elderly, amongst the very people who are giving the skills, we don't really want to talk about it. So probably we need, when we talk about entrepreneurship, to ask ourselves, what's going to happen with the 50% of society that cannot contribute to economy? If the 5% that is trying, there are more barriers than open doors. So how do we move forward? The economy of South Africa is collapsing at an alarming rate. For it, just in terms of competing, it is collapsing. In terms of maintaining its citizens, we are owned because all the money that we are maintaining with, beginning from the working sector and those that are benefiting from government, is a borrowed money. I think at a point where we address entrepreneurship, we must begin to say, now that we have a circumstance that causes talk about that is not permissive for business to can happen. What else can we be doing?
Thank you very much. I'm going to be short and this will need to be very short. And I think what Pastor Maliso ended up by saying is very important. And with the little that I've experienced is that I think we are too large scale also. We do not consider things from a small scale. And we speak as though we are not in the confines of a religion of a God who can make use of what you have in your hand. I'll give a practical example. I'm not a mechanical engineer, but I got used to the mechanical side of things. And I've learned that you get your firms that can charge a table. A car table is about 23,000. It's a component in the car that makes it go faster. And to fix it is about 20,000. But the service kit is about 500. And the time taken to fix it is about 30 minutes. And they charge you 20,000. Right? And that's just small experiences that you can get. You can start on a very small scale. Propose to someone. And another thing is that we should understand that money does not come straight from the government. Money also comes from the people who live in. So identifying the needs of the things that are in our community creates a business opportunity. And with that small opportunity, another thing that also hits us as Black people is that we do not have the mind of sustenance. The little you get, you already chow. The little you get, you already chow. But if you have the temperance to always hold the little that you get, you are definitely working towards something. That's what I needed to say.
It's a presentation that seeks to spark the conversation, hoping that it will lead to action. And number two, and also apologies that it's not in a workshop format. When I got the call, I already had commitments to give to the state again. So apologies for that. But I think, we will continue to refine and arrange something else. Maybe what I would like to leave you with, there's so many things I wanted to say as a conclusion. Now my train of thought is extended. But maybe just as a question and a challenge posed to everyone. So if, as a New Year's resolution, each and every one of us decide that we want to invest 1,000 rands, if you put it in a bank, money market account, or buy unit trust, what's the return on investment that you get? 10% at best, at most, 10% at most, because it's little money, maybe around 8%. And then the real growth would be around 2%, because inflation is sitting around between 5 and 6%. So real growth on your 1,000 rands would be about 2% at the end of the year, accounting for inflation, of course. So if that is the case, if it's just 2%, that means it's what, 20 rands. So at the end of 2024, in real terms, you will have 1,020 rands. But now I want to pose the challenge to each and every one of us. Who, by show of hands, is saying that we will dedicate 1,000 rands, 1,000 rands next year for a side hustle? That we will work hard such that we double that 1,000 rands to 2,000 rands by DASA. Minimum of 1,000 rands. Minimum of 1,000 rands that you're going to invest in a business or side hustle or whatever you want to call it. And you will work hard to double that money to 2,000 rands by DASA next year. No, not funny. If I have 20,000, or maybe DASA can then must give you 1,000 rands each, a loan of 1,000 rands. But let's keep those hands up. Let's keep those hands up. I want stand up and count or have a visual. No, that 1,000 is yours.